Very warm good evening to everyone. Am I audible to all of you? Please nod your head so that I can understand. Okay. So a very warm good evening to everyone. Today I, Bhavna Sharma, editor at Fairgaze, and welcome you all to the webinar on global activities for school education. This is presented to you by Fairgaze Media, together with Glencorn Publishing, who collaborated and brought up Glengaze Model United Nations. So this webinar, particularly this webinar, is brought to you by Glengaze Model United Nations in association with Action Committee for Unaided Recognized Private Schools, Indraprasth Sahodaya Schools, Delhi Sahodaya Schools Complex, and Prudence Group of Schools. And today it's my honor that we are present with Ms. Glenda Clark. She's really energetic. And I must say you all that you all are going to enjoy a lot her session and will take some definite benefits out of this session. So Ms. Glenda Clark, she is the author of How to Be a Great MUN Delegate. She has been into teaching since more than 27 years. She has more than 27 of experience in teaching. She's also the manager of United Arab Emirates debate team. So I welcome Ms. Glenda Clark. And I request all the leadership and the principals of all the schools to please welcome her with a round of applause and great smiles. Thank you so much. So,
welcome, ma'am.
Welcome, Glenda. Looking forward.
You're not audible, ma'am.
Yeah, you're not audible.
Am I audible
Unmute
now?
yourself.
Yes, you are audible.
You are.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So before I move ahead with this session, I request all of you, all the principals and members of school leadership teams, that if you have any question or any doubt, then you can place in the chat box. You can actually text your questions in the chat box, and or else what you can do is you can raise your hand in the Zoom feature. You have Zoom feature of raising your hands in the chat box. So you can go there, raise your hand, and you can directly question to Glenda. The host will unmute you. So before I move ahead, I'm again repeating that if you have any question for Ms. Glenda during this session, the Q&A session will happen in the last for 10 minutes. So if you have any question, you can ask from Ms. Glenda Clark. You can raise your hand in the chat box. So the host will unmute you, and or else what you can do is you can text your question in the chat box. So I hand over the mic to Ms. Glenda Clark.
Okay, hello everybody. It's very nice to speak to everybody. I thought I would try and put why I see MUN as so important into a context. So I taught in the UK for 18 years before I moved out to the UAE. And in the UK, there aren't quite so many opportunities to participate in competitions on a sort of global scale. And now, obviously, part of that is also the fact that I've been a teacher for a very long time, and therefore, when I first started teaching, there also weren't all the technologies available to be able to make that possible. However, when I was at school myself, I participated in debating competitions, and I thought debating was a really important thing to also teach my students. When I first started teaching, I taught religious studies or religious education at school. And that was, well, you know, a baptism of fire in essence, because I experienced an awful lot of criticism from parents, an awful lot of misunderstanding, misconceptions of what it was that I was teaching the students in a religious studies lesson. And it became more and more apparent to me that it was really essential to give students the opportunity to think critically. And so I could do that via my subject, and I could also then do that via debating and giving students the skills that they needed to be great debaters. I mean, over the time that I was teaching, I had a lot of opportunities to contribute to what the curriculum should be for religious studies. And ultimately, you will find now that GCSE and A levels in religious studies from the UK tend to be philosophy and ethics based. And therefore, that whole area of critical thinking is so much more essential for students. So after 18 years of teaching in the UK, I moved to Dubai and have been teaching here for the last 12 years. When I moved to the school that I was at in Dubai, of course, I was asked, what would I like to contribute? What would my ECA be, my extracurricular activity? And so, of course, I thought, well, it's going to be debating, isn't it? That's the thing I know about and I can help students with. And consequently, some students came to me and they said they were participating in a competition called World Scholars Cup. I'd never heard of World Scholars Cup at this point. But they asked me if it was possible for me to go along and judge some debates, because there was a debating element in World Scholars Cup, which I was very happy to do. And I said I would go along. On the morning of the competition, the first day of the competition, I received a phone call from the students. There were some sort of issue, but at the school, there happened to be a teacher who knew me. And this teacher said, just phone her now and ask her if she can come in right now and help resolve this issue, because she's coming this afternoon in any case. So I went in and suddenly was sucked into this vortex, which is World Scholars Cup and all the elements of it that there are. And the students were like, can you come back tomorrow? There's a second day tomorrow. And I was happy to do this. And I'd sat in and judged the debates. And the thing that concerns me with the debating with World Scholars Cup is that they are very keen on people being able to express their opinions without being interrupted. So there are no POIs, there are no interruptions while someone's speaking. So to me, whilst it was a debate, it was a lot more just a public speaking competition. It didn't really have that critical analysis element that I thought was so important. But my students loved World Scholars Cup. And so they stayed doing World Scholars, and I then started going with them to every competition and realized that actually they needed a lot of training in this. And, you know, we were very successful in doing this. You know, we had the Southeast Asian global champions for World Scholars Cup, and, you know, we could win every single round in Dubai by a mile or whatever else, which was lovely. But some of the students felt like they needed more of a challenge. And so I felt that the debating element really wasn't strong enough. So along with another teacher who trained students for World Scholars Cup from his school, we set up Dubai Debate League. And so that has now been running for 8 years. We have a big competition across the UAE. And I now manage the UAE debate team as well, and have taken them to 2 championships for World Schools Debating in the past 2 years. It looks like we're going to do it online this year, because it's, you know, so important to continue this element on. For me, the debating is amazing, and that element of critical thinking is obviously there with points of information and so on and so forth. So we continue on with this journey that I was on at the school that I was at. And there was one particular student who came to see me, and she said, Miss, you know, I love doing the World Scholars Cup and I love doing the debating, but I'm also now thinking I'd like to do MUN's, Model United Nations. So I said, okay, great. And we had a teacher in the school who was experienced with it. And then this teacher came to me and she said, oh, would you like to come along to the next competition? We need a second teacher. So along I went. Weirdly, this teacher left a few months later, and somehow I ended up taking over Model United Nations training as well. So I thought, okay, well, you know, great. When I was at school, the United Nations was a little bit like a secret society that you couldn't really know anything about. And so I thought this Model United Nations is fantastic. I know it was set up so that young people could understand the machinations of what went on within the UN, and that maybe in the future they would think, this is a career that I would like to have. And so I started researching into it. And I went with another teacher to an MUN where this student, Avery, was participating as well. And the teacher sitting with me was a very enthusiastic young teacher, and she said to me, we could run one of these at our school. And I said, really? I said, do you know what? I think what we're seeing today is the tip of the iceberg. I think the majority of what's happening today, training has gone on over a long period of time to get the students to the standards that we're seeing today. Anyway, this student, Avery, won the best delegate position at that conference, and she won an award for the best paper as well. And I thought, this is the girl that I need working with me so that we can push everything forward. Now, I'm going to use Avery as an example because 4 years later, we sat at that same school with a new set of students waiting to participate in an MUN. And at that point, Ananya had asked me if I would like to write a book about being a great MUN delegate. I wanted to write the book in conjunction with Avery. Okay, I have the book right here. We didn't just think about it, we did it. So here it is, How to Be a Great MUN Delegate, and Avery is there on the back. My face is scratched out. I didn't do that on purpose. That's just a little accident that happened. And so Avery and I wrote the book because we thought it was really important to have this perspective from a teacher's perspective who was training the students, and from a student's perspective who was actually doing all the hard work and going in and participating, talking, winning awards, feeling disappointed, whatever else from participating. And I think maybe what was the scariest thing about it was when I read Avery's chapters, I just thought, oh my goodness, this sounds like me talking as well. So we obviously had this kind of connection. And I think if you see the book, it's very difficult to tell which chapters are written by her and which are written by me. And she picked the ones that she felt comfortable with, and I just went with whatever was left, okay? And so Avery's goal was that we would run our own MUN in school. And again, I said to her, you know, this is what the teacher said to me the first time I came here. But she and I felt it was really essential that she participated in a lot of MUNs to understand the internal workings, whilst I was working on all the external sides of an MUN with them and reading papers from the students. Now, going back to that original idea of how important I think critical thinking is, this is where I think MUN encapsulates everything. So whilst I love World Scholars Cup, I think it's better for younger students. And whilst I love debating, quite obviously, and I think that's good for students of all ages. Whilst I love both of these elements, MUN has something additional to that. Okay, so you have to have an awareness of politics and political stances. You have to have an awareness as a global citizen. You have to think critically. When you are presenting as a delegate from a country where you may not agree in the slightest with their political stance, with their political policies, you have to adapt. You have to place yourself in their shoes and understand where that comes from. So there is also that historical element that comes into it as well, and is combined in everything that you are putting together. And I think the biggest resource that I provide as a teacher is that when, let's say, a 16-year-old student comes to me and says, here's my position paper, what do you think, miss? I will say, what are you hoping to achieve from this MUN conference? And they will say, inevitably, well, we want some money and then we can sort everything out. And I will say to them, okay, everybody is going to come and say, we want money. Where can you be different? Where can you stand out as a delegate? What are you going to ask for that is beyond asking for money? Because there are only limited finances that can be shared amongst everybody. And so that's my trying to get them to think more critically element that I would bring into it. But secondly, I will say to them, okay, you know, you're 16 years old, you've looked back 10 years in history at the politics that have gone on, and you think, why would I be bothered about what politics happened when I was 6 years old or younger? But I'm the one who will go, well, hold on. Historically, these two countries would never agree to be working together, or, you know, these two countries would work together, put them together, encourage them to do those things. So that's where my role as a teacher comes into it, and training those students come into it, because whilst students have amazing capabilities, they do still need that guidance to make sure that they're doing the right sort of things, and there are particular structures that they do need to follow as they are working through things. So for a teacher who is training students in MUN, it's really important that they have a political awareness and also some sort of historical background to be able to throw that into the mix with the teachers, with the students. So the idea is then for me is that MUN combines all of these things. All right, you have to get up and you have to deliver a speech. You may be presenting your resolution paper. So this means you have to be able to speak well. So there's your debating element that comes into it straight away. However, you also have to write a position paper. So you've got to have a good written style and be able to compose what you're going to say. You need to be able to have great research skills. Okay, there are many, many papers that the UN have published which are available for students to see on various topics as they are going through them. You know, the important thing is that they research thoroughly, but also then critical thinking, because they need to be able to pull those elements out and use them. They can't be copying what is going on. They can't just go, oh, well, that's a really good idea, we'll do that again. Okay, because if that's the case, it hasn't worked. And this is the important element that I think students bring to MUN. Okay, the whole point is the students are the ones who look at the world in a different way, maybe from jaded politicians, and therefore they have an optimism about the world and the way that things can be resolved. So that's really, really important. And finally, there is this really important skill that a student has to have, which is to negotiate and collaborate with other people. The student that wins the Best Delegate Award in any committee is not necessarily the student who has spoken up the most and made themselves look good by talking so much. Generally, the student that wins the Best Delegate Award is the delegate who works with other people, who knows when to encourage somebody else to speak on a topic, who knows where their country stands historically and who they are friends with and who they would collaborate with and who they really need to work with to negotiate with. And so that is such an essential element to what is going on. So just to round this off and to tell you a little bit about what happened to Avery. She came into my office one day and said, "Miss, I think there's a joke. A university in Boston have contacted me and said that they have another student who used to be at our school and did debating in MUN. And they said they're so impressed with her that they've been keeping a track of what we've been doing at our school in various competitions. And they were offering to fly Avery out to Boston to live for a week with a family and come and see their university and see the extended program that they had for very able students." And she went, because it wasn't a joke, it was real. And she accepted her place on the course. They gave her 100% tuition fees, all paid. Everything was paid for but for her in a scholarship. And she did their extension course. In her first summer, she worked at the UN and worked going through papers and actually meeting people whose papers she'd read in the past, which has inspired her completely as to exactly what she wants to be. And Avery graduated last month from Northeastern University and is going on to do her master's in political sciences from there on in. But her opportunities at university were doubled by her interaction with MUN. Whilst the university were impressed with World Scholars Cup and were impressed with her debating, there are many universities who have no idea what World Scholars Cup is. Most of them understand a bit about debating, but the majority of universities understand MUN, and they are looking for those skills from students, which is why it has become the thing that I maybe love the most in what I can pass on to students. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I've talked for quite a long time. And I can see that lots of things have come through on the chat, but I haven't got my glasses on, so I haven't been reading them. So I'll put my glasses on and have a little look there. Yes, okay. All right, so when I'm talking about the papers, if you go on and search, you can find resolution papers that the UN have passed previously or have considered, depending on the issue that you are looking at. So let's say, for example, you are looking at the issue of refugees. There are all sorts of UN papers that have gone through and can be accessed to see yourself. But I guess the difficult thing is, particularly with younger students, when they first start doing this, they will find the papers and they will just lift chunks out of them. And when they do that, they are obviously then laying themselves open to plagiarism. And at most reputable MUNs, they will have somebody who is running through those papers to check that they are not plagiarizing anybody else. Right, I'm just having a look in here to see whether Avery suggests really good places for looking at to find papers. Hold on, let me have a look. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you do, whilst there are certain websites that you can look at that are UN based, you also need to be looking beyond those, because you need to consider what other elements are maybe missing from those resolution papers, because you've got to come up with something else. So Avery really likes answers.com, which has all sorts of interesting issues that you can look at. You can also look at, I'm just having a look at different things that I've used in here. There are various, I mean, to be honest, the websites that you would use will change dependent upon the issue that you're looking at as well. So that's the thing. But yeah, there are all sorts of UN papers if you Google in them. Yeah, Reuters have all sorts on them.
Okay, Glenda ma'am. Okay, so before moving ahead with the question and answer session, I would really thank you for conducting this enriching session. So before I move ahead, so we have one good news for all the viewers, for all the principals. So, ma'am, I would like to take your few minutes for that announcement.
Yes,
so, yeah. So all the principals, we have one good news from Glen Gay's Model United Nations that Glen Gay's Model United Nations is coming up with its MUN, Online Model United Nations on COVID-19 on 30th of June 2020. I repeat again that this 13 June 2020, Glen Gay's Model United Nations is coming up with its online Model United Nations on COVID-19. So I expect, and we all from Glen Gay's family, we expect that your students are going to come here, participate, and present some great deliberations that you even never expected as a principal, that your students are going to come and do such great deliberations. And we really hope and see you all on 13th of June 2020. And for any kind of query, you can come to www.glengays.com and can mail us on info@glengays.com. I repeat that if you have any query for this Model United Nations, then you can come and visit us on www.glengays.com and drop us a mail on info@glengays.com. So this is the announcement that we want to make, and we were waiting and we were so excited to tell all of you. So I really thank Glenda ma'am for coming here and giving this enriching session before we made this announcement. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we move ahead with the question and answer round. So already in the chat box, we can see a lot of things coming that they want to have the sites. And yeah, can you please drop the email if here? So they are also asking for email. I will share about the Glen Gays. I will definitely before. But if any other question that you have, please ask in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. The host will unmute you. If you have any question, details of MUN I will definitely share before leaving. But if any other question apart from the sites that you were asking for United Nations research sites, authentic sites for MUN, then apart from that question, any other question that is coming, please ask in the chat box. Okay, so Glenda ma'am, there is Angad Singh. He's asking, ma'am, please tell what are the substantive chits?
Okay, that's very Indian terminology, I would just say to you. All right, I'm going to show you this. Okay, so in this book that we put together, what you could see is that Avery put in a position paper and then showed the different areas that you would have in this position paper. Okay, so if you are debating, you would talk about your substantive arguments. Okay, so what are the elements, the key elements, your biggest arguments that you would put forward that answer the question that you are looking at? So obviously, again, when you are putting together a position paper, you would have your substantive arguments. What are the key areas that your country agrees with, disagrees with, needs support on, whatever else, that goes into your paper, okay? And I would also suggest a position paper is literally setting out where does the country you're representing stand on the issues that you're looking at in this particular committee, okay? There are all sorts of different committees that you could be a part of. And so when you're writing these papers, you have to make sure that actually you are concise in what you write as well. Because the chair of the committee will be receiving a position paper from everybody who is a delegate in that committee. Okay, so you can see what they're normally looking for is one side of A4 typed paper with your position as to where you stand. Okay, when you go on to write a resolution paper, that is written in conjunction with other delegates in the committee. Okay, and in that resolution paper, there is a structure that you will follow through. So you will talk about what the issue is, how you're going to address it, and how you, in conjunction with the other countries, are going to support each other to move through that. So that's really where it's how you put those papers together.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can find you a resolution paper to show you. So again, you will see what Avery did when she wrote this section, because obviously she's the expert at writing things as opposed to me, is she showed like the key elements that you would need going through to put a resolution paper together so that you can come to those. So resolution papers can be a little longer because there may be extra elements, but again, you should be looking at them being about one A4 side of typed writing when you are putting them together.
So, ma'am, there is more questions coming up. So, Ms. Vasudha Sarang, she's asking, how can children excel in preparing a good resolution? What all points should be considered?
I mean, you see, this is the issue, right? We cannot necessarily train the students as to how to come up with a good resolution. What you have to train the students in is their negotiation skills and their political awareness, okay? Because, like I said, there have been many resolutions that have been passed by the MUN by the UN and discussed by the UN, okay? But there are still a lot of problems in the world today. And this is the element that young people are bringing to this, okay? Sometimes I see the resolutions that they're suggesting and I think, do you know what, that's a bit naive. And I maybe need to get them to think more deeply about it. But actually, sometimes it takes, you know, the eyes of a young person to look at an issue and go, well, do you know what? You're just making it too complicated. This is actually the root of the problem, and that's how it can be resolved, right? And so that's the thing. Resolutions should be coming from the minds of those students. You are training them to think critically, to collaborate with other people, and to be politically aware. Then they will come to good resolutions, okay? I can't tell you what a good resolution is because it contains so many elements.
Okay. Ma'am, we have another question from Ms. Prerna Dewan. She's asking, is the book based on UNA USA rules of procedure?
No, it follows FIMUN predominantly, but what we tried to do was make sure that it went across different MUN structures. So there is a section in here which kind of shows you slight differences in the different structures of MUNs. But on the whole, all MUNs have this same structure of having position papers, resolution papers, debates within the committee, moderated caucuses, unmoderated caucuses, where people have the opportunity to discuss between them. Yeah, so it just, you don't have to make a huge amount of changes. So for example, my students can go and do a Harvard MUN, and then they can go and do a Phi MUN, and because they've got the critical analysis skills, they can just adapt to the structures. There's nothing major between them. Yes, okay, yeah, I know you're saying that I can see a question here that says there are ones that vary from being 1 day to 3 day conferences. What I would say is I would always look at the size of the conference, because I think that's really important. If you put an inexperienced student into an MUN and they go into a committee where there are 200 other delegates, they will be absolutely petrified, to be honest, and potentially swamped by everybody else. And they will spend however many days that conference is sitting with their jaw dropping, listening to everybody else. However, if you can put them into an MUN where maybe they could go into a committee where there are, let's say, 16 delegates, then there is much more of an opportunity for them to speak up and to feel comfortable to speak up in not such a large forum. And they can also then, the chair should be encouraging them to speak up if they're in a smaller committee as well. So I think there was a question here about, does it matter if you matter so much if you win, or does it matter if you participate? You know, obviously winning is lovely, but it's participating and learning from other delegates. Because I know, for example, when I do training with students, you know, you're explaining all this terminology, all these different things that they need to know, and they're looking really worried. But actually, once they do an MUN, once they participate and they see it all in action, it makes it so much easier for them, or more accessible for them at least. And that was exactly the way I felt. I wanted to go to a few more MUNs to make sure that I understood procedures, protocols, everything else, so that I could then really support my students in what they are doing. Okay, so there's a question there asking, what's the General Assembly? Okay, that depends on the MUN that you're participating in. The General Assembly, you may have General Assembly 1, General Assembly 2. General Assembly tends to be a larger committee, and in the General Assembly, they will be looking at more in the way of laws and changing in the structures of policies that are going on. So you will then have other committees that will have specifics that they are looking at. So, for example, you will get DISEC, which is about disarmament and weaponry. You will get ECOSOC, which is about economics. You will get, I mean, there's all sorts. There are women committees, there are justice committees, there are a whole range, right, that you could be in there looking at. Right, hold on, I'm looking at what it says.
And ma'am, are you there? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, Mr. Sushant Khosla from Prudence School is there. He wants to ask you a question directly.
Yep.
So we have unmuted him. Mr.
Yep.
Sushant, are you there? Hello, Mr. Sushant. Hello, Mr. Sushant.
Thank you so much for unmuting me. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I just wanted to ask one thing that in Glen's Gaze MUN, will position paper will be a part of it? If yes, then how to create a good position paper?
Okay. Yeah, we can. I mean, we can give you a bit of a structure for a position paper. Every MUN will ask for particular things. Like I said, it needs to be concise. It needs to show where your country stands on this issue, historically, where they've stood on this issue, where they've progressed to, what the issues are for them right now, and what they want to move forward with. So let's say, for example, we take, I don't know, education of females as an example. So say you're writing a position paper about that. Obviously, you're not going to be for Glen Gaze, but say you're writing a position about that position paper, you would then say, okay, so this is where my country is. Now, it might be that your country is very advanced in education for females. And so what you may say is, what we would like to offer is expertise to other countries, and we would like to offer support or putting in a mechanism, or do you see what I mean? There are all sorts of different things that you can offer. So, you know, it might be, it depends which country you're a delegate of in your position paper. So you have to be aware that for some countries they'll be asking for support, but for other countries you would be offering that support. Yeah, so your position paper has to make it clear where you are at on that issue and what it is you want to achieve at this MUN. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. But one more thing: is there a specific format for it, or it has to be a random?
No, there is a sort of a fairly set idea that you should have. So you would just have like an introduction, a main body, sort of setting out, you know, where are you at? So the first one will just be, the first part of that is just like your country's stance, where you are, all the stuff I talked about, possible root causes. So that's all the historical side of it. And then you would be like linking to your paper's conclusion. So that's, where are we now, and you know, what are we offering, and then a conclusion saying, you know, this is what we would like to achieve today. A lot of delegates kind of don't bother with that conclusion, and that can, you know, that's not good for them as a delegate. They do need to say, look, we need help, or look, we think we're pretty well advanced on this, so let us help you, or share our expertise, or whatever that might be. You know, like I was saying before, a lot of students will say, oh, well, we'll just conclude by saying we want money, but there's only limited amount of resources, right? So you've got to try and be a bit more creative in what you can offer.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Ma'am, we are running short of time, so just one more question and then we will move ahead. So, Sanna Vijay Kumar is asking, how often should any curriculum be revised to meet the society?
I can't hear you.
How often should any curriculum be revised to meet the society demands?
Okay, can you read that question again to me? I only heard the last bit.
How often should any curriculum be revised to meet the society demands?
Any curriculum? Oh, now that's asking a big question, isn't it? I mean, personally, as a teacher, I would say a curriculum should run for at least 5 years. The reason why I'm saying that is that you need to embed what is going on. So I'd say 5 to 10 years before you would then review a curriculum. However, as individual teachers, I would be expecting a teacher every year to be looking at what they're presenting in a classroom and considering, do I need to update this? Is there anything more that I need to bring into this? You know, and, you know, I'm going to say confidently that as a teacher, I am constantly evaluating and thinking, as I learn something new, I can incorporate that into what I teach. Yeah, and it's so important to have that continual updating and upgrading of what you're doing.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So today we had a lot of questions coming up, but we cannot take all the questions and all the people who are asking, waiting for their chance that they can ask a question to you directly, but we cannot do due to shortage of time. And I hope everyone understands that. So please mail us your questions. We will send that to Miss Glenda, ma'am. She will answer that and we will try to resolve your query. And for today's session, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Really, thank you. We are really grateful to you for coming here and addressing us on global activities for school education and telling us about so many things about Model United Nations that we never knew about. And before leaving, I would request Dr. C.B. Sharma, Principal of Prudence School, to please come up here, and I would request him to take the dais and present a vote of thanks to everyone. Dr. C.B. Mishra, Principal of Prudence School, Delhi. I would hand over the mic to him for the vote of thanks to everyone who associated for this webinar by Ms. Glenda Clark. Sir, you are not audible to us. Wait.
Namaskar.
Yes, sir, now.
Namaskar, Glenda madam. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Now, first of all, on behalf of Action Committee of Unaided Private Schools, Secretary sir and the Chairman sir, Mr. Bharat Arora sir, and Suraj Prakash sir is also participating in this webinar. I also thankful to the Indraprastha School Sahodaya, Association of the School Sahodaya all over Delhi. And also thankful to the Delhi School Sahodaya, all students group of school who organized this thing. First of all, I am thankful to all the participants for listening. And unfortunately, due to the short of time, we are unable to reply to all of you. And I request you to kindly give your points and suggestions to you can on the email so that we can reply. Actually, on this day, basically one thing is more, we are going to start the one webinar, MUN, that is fixed on 13th June. And for that query, we will definitely send the details to your schools also. The school principal or the in charge of MUN will definitely tell you about it. With this COVID-19, I think this, I can say this enemy which is not visible. I cannot say COVID-19, I say the enemy which is not visible. Right now, you are supposed to look into the pedagogical skills, which is very much required. One person has asked regarding the curriculum. The curriculum is totally based on the pedagogical skills, what we are using right now. The age of artificial intelligence in the education system, we are supposed to involve the 5 things which we require right now. That 5 things and 5 E's. I am saying 5 E basically, which is very much essential. And that 5 E's are first is E, you can say the engage yourself, explore yourself, explain the things, whatever you are exploring, calibrate the things in a better form, and then evaluate it where you reach. this 5E, when you work, definitely you will get something result. On behalf of Fair Gaze, on behalf of Action Committee of Unrated Private School, on behalf of Indraprastha School Sahodaya, on behalf of Delhi School Sahodaya Chapter, and also on behalf of the Prudence Group of School, I thank all the participants for watching on the webinar through Zoom, also on the Facebook. Thank you all. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable words. Thank you so much, Brenda ma'am, for coming here and doing this enriching session. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much to all our associations, Action Committee, Indraprastha Sahodaya School, Delhi Sahodaya School Complex, and Student Group of Schools. Thank you so much to all of you for making this session happen. And it was really all of you here as our audience. People are asking for the recording. Am I audible?
No. Yeah, no.
So the recording is live on Facebook, so all of you can visit there. The recording is live on our Facebook. Hello? Hello? Am I audible now? So the recording of today's session is live. You can go there and can check the... So anyone who has missed out any, go there and again listen to the whole session. I thanks again to everyone, all the associations, Ms. Glenda coming here and doing the session, Dr. C.B. Mishra sir, thank you so much to all of you. Thank you.
So I would request everyone to share their feedback with the polls generated on their screen. Thank you so much.
I guess everyone has filled the feedback form. It's really important for us to know that how was it and how our audience enjoyed it or not. Do they really receive those insights that they were looking for? Do they want the session to happen again? So it's really important to know what were the issues which they faced. So we will try to resolve in the next session, and we will try to bring Ms. Glenda Clark again for this enriching session.
That's a big question.